Break out the carrot sticks and natural yogurt, no artificial hormones added. It's time for the Doctor's Nutrition Show. Dr. Lewis and Janet have a long history of helping people achieve their maximum potential. While Janet is a certified natural health consultant with a unique perspective of alternative and complementary nutrition, Dr. Lewis stays current on the latest research pertaining to nutritional supplements and optimum health. Paramount to their educational journey was their trip to China while studying Chinese medical doctors. Dr. Lewis and Janet know the importance of proper nutrition in the healing process and maintenance of the human body. Get ready to gain a healthy perspective on life. This is the Doctor's Nutrition Show.
Hello and welcome to this week's show. I'm Janet Lewis.
Yeah, and I'm Dr. Lewis.
He is your natural thyroid specialist, and we are Doctor's Nutrition of Texas, located in Texas, but can take care of your health needs and issues nationwide. Our website is www.doctorsnutrition.org. It's drsnutrition.org. We have got another informative show for you today. This one is a part 2 follow-up to our first one that was 1 degree of change about diet and how there's things that you can do to better your own self without having to come see us. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but in case you wanted to and wanted to just change the way you eat, there are some great things that you can do. We thought we'd educate you a little bit more in detail about other items of food choices that might help you and your family. So this show is called Another Degree of Change. So Dr. Lewis, can you start off by telling us what you want us to know?
Well, sure. I do get to talk to people all over the country, and to me that's very exciting and very rewarding. And it's amazing to me the amount of people that are beginning to get it, that our food supply in America is not what it should be. And they're beginning to take responsibility, and they're beginning to grow some of their own food. And I talked to a really nice guy up in Hot Springs named Jim. And although he's a RN in Little Rock, he talked about what he does for growing his own food and how he makes his own bone broth and how he eats eggs, and he understands that eggs are not bad for you. And it's like, well, I appreciate Jim coming to me for help, even though he's way ahead of the average person in knowledge and in action, because it's not what you know that's going to get you well, it's what you do. And so talking about eggs, there's beginning to be a movement where people or farms are beginning to understand, oh, well, I'm producing healthier chickens and healthier eggs. And there are more and more of them that realize that soy is one of the biggest allergens that we have in our diet, but it's also an allergen when it comes to chickens too. And if you go soy-free in the food for the chickens, then you don't have the allergens that are present in the yolk or in the meat of the chicken. And did you know that birds are actually allergic to corn? Well, corn's used as a filler, and it's a pretty cheap crop to grow versus what you get out of it. And it has something in it called BT. It's a gene from a bacteria that's spliced into the corn that makes it toxic, not just for us, but for the chickens. So keep it out of the chickens so that you're not getting the tainted meat and the tainted eggs too. The corn also, and you've heard Janet talk a lot about high fructose corn syrup in corn. The corn actually can create fatty liver and suppression of the thyroid, and that's going to be on my book when that comes out. We're seeing more and more fatty liver on younger and younger people, and it's because America has introduced so much corn, soy, and wheat and high fructose corn syrup that we're seeing 16, 18, 20-year-olds that's already had their gallbladder out and they're having liver problems because of the beginning of fatty liver. So it's very important that we understand the importance of eggs and raising the chickens as naturally as you can and as organically as you can. Walmart actually said their eggs are going to be cage-free by 2025. But the thing about it is, we're going to give you a lot of information. We're going to try to help you understand that cage-free doesn't necessarily mean that they've got a big, large pasture to grow in. It could mean that they just have an extra square foot somewhere. So let's go over a little bit about the different types of eggs, because so many people are fooled when they say, oh, well, it's natural. Well, that's not necessarily a good thing. Like organic, for example, chickens and the eggs from chickens, they should be cage-free. They should have the ability to go outdoors, even though the amount of time and the amount of space they have is not necessarily specified. So I think it's better to have your local farmer and see what they're feeding the chickens, see if the chickens can go out into the pasture and forage for themselves, because they produce a much, much healthier egg. Organic chickens, they can't have any antibiotics, and they have to be fed organic vegetarian food. And that's another thing. Well, okay, you got to do that to label it organic, but chickens by nature are not vegetarian. You know, they'll eat mice and snakes and worms and June bugs, etc., etc. They love grasshoppers and earthworms. So don't think vegetarian is necessarily a good thing either. Just that's a note to think about. These federal regulations, that's one of the things I think the USDA has done a pretty good job on. And that if you're going to buy the egg in the store and not from your local farmer, organic's the best way to go.
When you talk about coming to see you, for the new listeners out there, people that don't understand what we do, basically we take the guesswork out of what's going on with your nutrition. So when Dr. Lewis is telling you what kind of eggs and that sort of thing to be eaten, if you're really confused about whether your nutrition is good to start with, we do low-cost lab work so that, you're not guessing at what you need or may not need. Your diet may look great when we look at your lab and say, hey, you're doing a great job. And then there's times people think they're eating really good, and the soil that they've been growing their food in is tainted, and they don't look good at all on lab. So if you don't even know nutritionally where to begin, consider starting with the lab work that we offer, and we do offer it across the United States. And then Dr. Lewis doesn't charge to talk to you, so there is no guesswork anymore. You don't have to go to the health food store after something he says and try that. You'll have an answer that's specific for your health needs.
That's a good point. Right before we came to record this, I was just talking to a lady that's got some very severe problems. She's like in her early 50s. And she brought a bag full of supplements. And, as you've heard me say, supplements are created very unequally, just kind of like all women are different. And I guess you women think all men are different, and I would have to agree. And I said, well, although these may be good choices, they're not complete, and it's not really going to do the job. And she said, well, I think that's obvious. It's not doing the job, and she has some pretty major problems. If she will get serious with her health, and I think she will definitely get better, because I can't say supplements cure anything, but they allow your body to have the raw materials to go out and utilize them for good physiological changes.
So that's a good example of someone that's trying to do the right thing and taking things, but then without lab work, they don't still know for them what's missing.
That's good. Don't go by how you feel, because the lab work will show us things that you won't necessarily, most of the time, you don't feel the bad things that's going on. And remember, folks, that disease is just adaptive physiology. Means your body has adapted to something that's wrong, and the symptoms and / diseases that come from that, it can be nutritional, lack of nutritional the nutrients that are missing in your food. It can be environmental, the toxins, the plastics, pesticides, fire retardants, cadmium, aluminum, mercury, etc. And it can be spiritual. So there's a lot of possibilities, but as you clean up your diet, that's going to be a very, very good thing. Not complete, but good, and that's why we're talking about diet. So the next thing on eggs is free range. And, again, there's no regulations that talk about the amount of time or the quality of time that these chickens spend outdoors, or the quality of what they have access to. My pen wasn't big enough for my chickens. I thought it was about 3 times bigger than what they needed. Well, no, they ate it down to bare ground. So I had to just open the gate and let them forage on the 24 acres. But unfortunately, they would come up into the flower bed and tear up Janet's begonias and all those other nice quality flowers. So free range is a good thing, and you can tell a difference when you crack one of the eggs from my chickens versus one out of the store.
Because the yolks are more yellow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
1/3 less cholesterol, which I don't think cholesterol is a big deal anyway. And it was several times more vitamin E, several times more beta-carotene, et cetera, et cetera. They're just much, much more nutritious. The next label you can get into is cage-free. And, that sounds good on the surface, but it's not necessarily giving that particular chicken access to a large or a supply of food and water. There's not any regulation about the types of food, and the chickens may be very, very tightly packed. So cage-free is an improvement over conventionally raised chickens, but it's not necessarily something you should get excited about.
Well, when you're talking about the difference in the nutrition in the eggs and that sort of thing, what happens in the body when you eat something bad, like from, say you're, I don't want to pick on any big or small box store, big box store, whatever, your fast food drive-through.
Right.
But, what's the difference? So if you're going to, so you're eating a good egg versus a not so good egg, or you're going through the fast food, what happens to the body that makes a difference at all according to what kind of food you're putting into it?
Well, a lot of people, all of us, live in a society that we've created that is too busy. And, if you're eating like, say, a third fast food, you're getting a lot of endocrine-disrupting chemicals. You're getting higher levels of the phthalates in your urine because it's excreted, but those phthalates stay in your body, and they're endocrine disruptors. There's wild things, that's beyond me chemically, diethyl hexyl phthalate, and then you got di-isononyl phthalate. These are plasticizers that make plastics flexible, like in PVC. You notice we got lead in the water in Flint, Michigan, which is a horrible thing. And I said back in the 70s when I was doing some plumbing before going to college, hey, we're soldering these copper pipes with lead. That's going to be an issue. The copper's going to be an issue, and then the lead's going to be an issue. Now it is an issue, but what's going to happen, folks, is we're going to find out the phthalates or the plasticizers are going to be a problem in the PVC and now the PEX lines.
Well, they say they're correlating those plasticizers to endometriosis and fibrocystic breast and that kind of thing because they're binding the plastics are binding in there and people are having problems.
Well, they're going on to the estrogen receptor sites, and they're causing little girls to have menstrual cycles and breast many, many years before they should. And these estrogen mimickers, there's different types of estrogen, and it's up to the liver to take it and conjugate that molecule and make it into a safer estrogen, excretes it through the bile. And then if you're constipated and you don't have the right amount of right type of good bacteria in your guts, the bad bacteria take these safer, well conjugated estrogens and twist them back into the more harmful ones, and then it's reabsorbed through the small intestine and large intestine. And those are the ones that have a much higher propensity to cause cancer. So
they say the people that, in a recent research, people who ate drive-through hamburgers and takeout pizzas have higher levels of phthalates in their urine. So,
and most of it's sticking in your body.
And according to Time magazine, when they say fast food, it was broadly defined. It wasn't just the regular ones that you think of like McDonald's and Pizza Hut, but it also included sandwich shops and Starbucks and other casual dining restaurants. So you're picking up these phthalates and all kind of different things that you're probably not even considering. You can be drinking the phthalates also, not just eating fast food.
Well, that's one of the things I hear quite a bit, and I've actually read it says, well, if you're drinking water out of a plastic bottle, you're inviting cancer. Well, it's not that plastic bottles are good for you, and they've taken the BPA out, but there's usually about 12 other estrogen-mimicking plastics in it. But why would you pick on plastic bottles? Because you're sucking reverse osmosis water out of a plastic straw. You're squeezing out natural. Don't be fooled by that word natural. You're squeezing out natural, better toothpaste, hopefully fluoride-free, out of a plastic tube onto a plastic toothbrush. I even talked to an older man not too long ago, and I said, well, the water is coming out of a plastic bidet and going into the arterial plexus around your rear, so you're absorbing plastics. And he said, yeah, you're really getting too personal. And I said, well, you asked the question, so didn't mean to offend him.
So there's really no way around it. I mean, we live in a society where we're going to be around those things.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you don't invite it by microwaving in plastic, and it's really, really best if you avoid styrofoam cups and styrofoam containers. But one of the research studies I read about, even if you're buying cookies or donuts, not that we should because they're made from wheat, but the clear plastic film can actually outgas enough to cause environmental problems in your body, because remember, folks, your body is an environment in and of itself.
Yeah, they said that when they did this study, at least 35% of a person that ate at least 35% of their calories from fast food had nearly 24% higher levels of these phthalates, or 24% higher in one of the phthalates and 39% higher in the other phthalate in their urine, compared to those who had not consumed any fast food in that time frame. So you know that those who ate some fast food but got less than 35% of their calories from it, their levels were still nearly 16 and 25% higher respectively. So they're still getting phthalates, just in a different way.
So then you have to ask yourself, did you get overweight because you're eating the fast food, think GI or gut inflammation, or did you get overweight because of the phthalates that's coming from that? And, half the people that do our program lose weight. It's not a big deal because they're getting healthy. The other half have holy heck losing weight, and it's many times because your body's so toxic, your body's reluctant to shrink that fat cell and expose you to a higher level of chemicals, because your detoxification pathways can be impaired. And I see that all the time in liver enzymes. And, of course, you got the P450 pathway, and then you've got methylation, and it goes on and on and on. So you have to increase detox. And detox is kind of an overused buzzword. Oh, do this detox diet. You'll be young, rich, and good looking in 6 weeks. Folks don't believe it. You should put enough nutrients in your body every day to detox every day.
Yeah, there are specific products that we use. Our big one to help bind these endocrine disruptors is something called diindolylmethane. It's DIM, which actually, because if we're depressing you and telling you all these things are bombarding you, there are actually things you can take to help pull those back out.
Every problem we talk about has a solution.
That's right. We give you hope here. But, if you think you don't have a problem with phthalates, or you're saying, hey, I don't eat at the fast food places, here's some of the things that chemical disruptors with the endocrine system have happened, so that you can have an idea how bad what the phthalates are causing. And this is happening in wildlife: testicular cancer, genital deformations.
They're having gender disorientation. They don't know which bathroom to use?
I guess not. So low sperm counts and infertility in a number of species, including the polar bears. And so what are they exposed to? They're eating healthy.
Yeah. Well, there's all kinds of good books with research in it. It says polar bears have osteoporosis and thyroid problems, and we don't spray stuff up there. So, folks, it's coming out of the jet stream. And again, you shouldn't be depressed about this. My buddy Dan in North Carolina is a wonderful organic farmer. He said, I finally read the book you told me to read. And he said, it's depressing. I said, it shouldn't depress you. It should give you hope because now you have knowledge. But knowledge is only good if you take action. He said, yes, sir.
We're just trying to teach you that it doesn't just sneak up on you and grab you. It has been going on for a long time when you start having some issues.
You're not getting old. You're getting an accumulation of toxins.
So they, the deer, whales, and otters are all having problems with the endocrine system disruptors.
Because we're feeding our deer here in Texas. We have feeders, and it's throwing out genetically modified corn. Think about that for a while, folks. Oh, my deer and pigs are organic. Not if they're eating under your feeder. They're not.
That's very true.
Whoops.
So, needless to say, scientists are suspecting phthalates may affect human fertility and reproduction in similar ways also.
May suspect it, but the average man's sperm count's down it's down 50% in the last 50 years.
And testosterone sure is too. Yeah, so you know it is.
At least. Low T. Well, there's a reason for it.
Well, teach us a little bit about legumes and lentils then, about what to eat there.
It depends a lot on the culture you were growing up in. I grew up, the East Texas is the beginning of the South, so legumes and lentils really aren't that popular here. But, they're pretty high in fat, and that's a good thing. They're really high in fiber, which is soluble and insoluble, and that's important to have both. They have high protein, a lot of vitamins and minerals. The best thing to do is get familiar with these legumes and lentils and throw them in your soup. Janet makes an incredible tortilla soup or taco soup, and she throws in beans and peas, lentils. And she doesn't want anybody to know it, but she's an incredible cook. But don't tell anybody.
But I try to buy everything organic, even though it costs more. It's like putting 93 octane gas in your car versus the 87.
Oh, good analogy. Coming from a woman talking to a man.
I am. I'm learning this. That just means my car is going to go further down the road because I had organic.
Yeah, absolutely right. I'm impressed and almost speechless. No, that's good. But when you do these legumes and lentils, you need to place all these in a big pot and soak it overnight. And some people say turn it to a rapid boil, turn it off, set it aside, and then rinse the water because that gets rid of most of the things that cause gas, and that's about the indigestible fibers in your beans. And so, folks, do that for the sake of your spouse and children and grandchildren.
Because beans are really hard to digest anyway. A person really has problems. Even animals have problems digesting beans.
That's very true.
So if you soak them, it really does help to put a little apple cider vinegar in there. It really does help take away that gassy feeling later.
But they sure do taste good on our Tex-Mex food here at the beginning of the South, East Texas.
Well, let's talk a little bit about simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. A lot of people don't know the difference between one versus the other. So would you explain a little bit about what the difference is between the two of those?
Well, most foods, if they're, whole and in their original form, have a little bit of both, of simple and complex. But if you wanted to cut it down to the chase, simple carbohydrates are the ones that turn to sugar or glucose too fast, and then your body has to burn these, and it does it very quickly. That's why we crave carbs a lot of times. But then after the sugar drops, there goes your mood dropping, your energy drops, and your focus drops. And that's why you should never feed your kids anything that comes out of a box for breakfast in the morning. And if it's not used up right away, like you've got that big insulin spike, and the insulin drives in all the glucose that it possibly can, and then there's extra insulin hanging around, it does what? Stores it as fat. Now, the carbohydrate that are complex, that's a whole different ballgame. It's digested very, very slowly, and it's because of the length of the carbohydrates and how it branches and different types of sugar that's attached to these branches. Some of them can't be digested. That's why we talked about the indigestible sugars in some of the beans. And some of our digestive enzymes can't really handle it, and we almost always think people should be on digestive enzymes, and that's usually pretty easy to look at on the lab and find out.
And my favorite one to go with that to help break the beans down and that kind of thing is Alzheimer's, because it has ox bile in it. It's not just a plant-derived enzyme.
Yeah, lipase, cellulase, da-da-da-da-da. That's the most broad spectrum, and I think that's by far the best formula on the market for the most part. And other complex carbohydrates. Janet's a big fan of sweet potatoes. Of course, she's kind of thin. She can get by with it. I do them, and I love them, but I just can't do them a lot. Carrots and apples, although you got to be careful about carrots because they can actually turn to sugar a little bit too quickly. So don't juice your carrots, eat the fiber with it, and it's the fiber that slows the spike in the glucose.
See, a lot of people will just eat the insides out of the fruit and leave the peel because they do juice. So
right.
that kind of takes away from what needs to happen, right?
Right. Most of the important nutrients are in the peeling itself. Now, in my book, I plan to get in there several foods you should not eat, even though they're fruits and vegetables, but you shouldn't eat them because they're so laden with pesticides. So when I say eat the peel, I mean eat the ones that are organic so you don't have the pesticides on it, because the average apple's been sprayed about 14 times or so before it goes to market.
And still make sure you wash your vegetables off before you eat them. We use something called Fit that you spray on there, and it's like grapefruit seed,
essential
oils that not synthetic chemicals that are washing it off, because they have those too. So you're really kind of defeating the purpose. But make sure, even if they're organic, to wash them with something before you eat them.
Apple cider vinegar, or throw them in a little bit of lemon juice or lime juice, although you'd be wasting the lime and lemon juice on the drink you could have had. Oh, whoops, did I say that? Soluble and insoluble fiber. So we've talked about complex and simple carbohydrates. And that's why if you juice, take the fiber and throw it back into your drink. It's very, very good. And that helps have the healthy bowel movements, and that's, people will talk to me and says, tell Janet, my trains are going through the tunnel better than they used to. Tell her thank you, because she educated me in a way that I can understand.
And if you don't know that story,
oh, Lord.
We always ask people, which is one of the reasons they choose to do our lab work. Once I've spoke to them about bowel movements, somehow they figure they better do their lab work because they might be missing something. If you're eating 3 meals a day, you should be having 3 bowel movements a day. And if you say, hey, I've never done that, I don't think that's normal, and I don't understand that, then just look at it this way. If you have 3 trains that are going through a tunnel, how many would you like to see come out on the other side? I would hope your answer would be 3, because that would be the right answer. Because if only one comes through, then where are the other 2 hiding? The same way with bowel movements. If you're eating 3 meals and one's coming through, or one's coming through every 2 or 3 days, where are the rest of your trains? So as those back up into the gut, then you start having organ issues. So that's what I'm telling people whenever you're wondering if you're healthy. That's the first thing to look at, is how many bowel movements are you having. And if you're answering, hey, I don't do that, I don't really know where to start to figure that out, that's what we do with the lab work. We figure out, hey, do they have a digestion problem? And if they have a digestion problem, is the thyroid related to that? Because thyroid very much controls digestion, as Dr. Lewis is going to be talking about in his book that'll be coming out soon. You need to look at all parts of why something's not working, not just one, as we've been taught with the medical profession to just address what's wrong. We're looking at the body as a whole. And when Dr. Lewis is talking about what to eat, on that lab we can see things like your overnight fasting sugar, but we also see what you've been eating for the last 3 months, and we're able to tell, hey, they've been dipping on the wrong side of those carbohydrates a little too much, or they've been into the fast food joint a little bit too much. We're very much able to see and pinpoint down what's wrong with what's going on with your body. And sometimes people get by genetically better than others because they inherited good genetics, and it allows them to get by with more than, say, someone else that's trying to do the right thing. So if you're tired of guessing and not feeling good and not really knowing where to start, or you know someone that is feeling that way, hey, don't keep us a secret. Pass us around and make sure that, you tell them about this show and get them the help they need. Go on our website to doctorsnutrition.org. Fill out the health survey. That's the first place to start, because that gives Dr. Lewis an opportunity to see what's missing with your health needs and where to start to get you well. And we use labs across the United States, so we're able to help you anywhere. So would you like to say anything to wrap up this session with eating correctly?
Yeah, real quickly, the soluble fiber, generally speaking, is your nuts, your fruits, blueberries, carrots, apples, oranges, and those are good. They help restore insulin level to a good area. And then the insoluble fiber is the one that bulks you up and helps you with the bowel movements. They don't dissolve in water. Good examples are zucchini, celery, broccoli. So, when my friend is licking the salt off the rim of her margarita, I hope, Debbie, you're eating your celery and pretending it's a Bloody Mary, because the celery is good for you. Dark leafy vegetables. And folks, I hope you've learned a lot and had a lot of fun, because your health can make a difference. Remember, your intention doesn't get you to your destination, but your direction does, and we'll put you on the right direction to being healthy. Thank you very much.
You guys have a blessed week, and we'll see you right here next time, right on the Doctor's Nutrition Show.